In 1988, Congress passed the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act to promote and regulate the Indian tribal gambling industry. If an Indian tribe wanted to set up gambling on tribal land, the tribe needed to negotiate an agreement with the state. The act required states to negotiate with the Indian tribes in good faith. If a state refused to negotiate fairly, then the tribe could sue in federal court to compel negotiation. The act specifically gave federal courts jurisdiction over these cases. Florida's Seminole Tribe wanted to set up gambling operations, but Florida refused to negotiate. The tribe sued the state and its governor in federal court to force them to the negotiating table. Florida claimed that the act violated its 11th Amendment rights by authorizing the tribe to sue the state in federal court. The district court denied Florida's motion to dismiss, but the Court of Appeals reversed. The Supreme Court granted cert to decide whether the 11th Amendment protected the state of Florida from the Seminole Tribe's lawsuit. The court held that deciding whether Congress can take away the state's 11th Amendment protection requires a two-step analysis. First, Congress must express an unequivocal intention to take away the state's 11th Amendment immunity. Second, Congress must have removed the immunity under a valid constitutional power. Chief Justice Rehnquist, writing for the five-justice majority, held that 11th Amendment immunity protected Florida from this lawsuit. Although Congress satisfied the first step by expressing a clear intention to remove the state's immunity, Congress had not acted under a valid constitutional power in doing so. Congress passed the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act pursuant to the Indian Commerce Clause, which granted Congress exclusive authority over commerce with Indian tribes. But under the American federal system, states are still considered sovereign entities. As part of that sovereignty, states generally can't be sued without their consent. This doctrine is called sovereign immunity. The 11th Amendment protects state sovereign immunity by prohibiting federal courts from hearing cases brought against the states by private parties. But sometimes Congress can take away the state's sovereign immunity. For instance, Section 5 of the 14th Amendment authorizes Congress to protect civil rights from state infringement. That authority includes the power to authorize private individuals to sue states in federal court in actions to enforce these civil rights. Similarly, in Pennsylvania v. Union Gas, a splintered plurality ruled that the Interstate Commerce Clause also granted Congress the power to take away state sovereign immunity. Following Union Gas, the Seminole Tribe argued that the same rules should be extended to this case, since there was no convincing reason to treat the Interstate Commerce Clause and the Indian Commerce Clause differently. But after reconsidering the issue, the court overturned Union Gas. The court held that the Interstate Commerce Clause and the Indian Commerce Clause were both fundamentally different from the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was specifically enacted to alter the balance of federal and state power. The Interstate Commerce Clause and the Indian Commerce Clause both gave Congress legislative power over their respective subjects, but they didn't alter the fundamental limits of the federal judicial power under the 11th Amendment. Therefore, neither the Interstate Commerce Clause nor the Indian Commerce Clause allowed Congress to take away state sovereign immunity, and Congress couldn't rely on those parts of the Constitution to authorize the tribe's lawsuit against Florida. The majority affirmed the judgment of the Court of Appeals, agreeing that the tribe's suit was barred by Florida's right to sovereign immunity under the 11th Amendment. Justice Souter, joined by Justices Ginsburg and Breyer, dissented. Souter argued that the majority based its decision on an overly broad interpretation of the 11th Amendment. Souter argued that the 11th Amendment, by its plain language and history, barred only diversity cases brought against a state by a non-resident. In Souter's view, the 11th Amendment didn't bar federal question cases brought by individuals against states, which was the type of lawsuit here. Justice Stevens dissented separately, emphasizing that by overruling Union Gas, the court potentially undermined a number of federal legal claims. This included claims arising from intellectual property, environmental law, and economic regulation. Seminole Tribe of Florida versus Florida limited Congress's power to create private causes of action against state governments that violate federal law. However, subsequent decisions have diminished Seminole Tribe's impact by allowing Congress to take away state sovereign immunity in matters concerning bankruptcy and discrimination.